Dead Island 2 is on its way, with it releasing on the 21st of April, so we're getting really close to the release of the game. We're just over a week away now when I'm recording this video, and in today's video we're going to be going over things you need to do before the release of Dead Island 2. We'll be going over things you need to know and things that you should do on your PC or console before you go in and play the game on the 21st of April, or whenever you play it. This still applies when you are playing the game later down the line if you don't get it on its release. So in this video we're going over 12 things you need to do before the release of Dead Island 2. Let's waste no more time and let's get straight into it. So the first thing to do is pre-order the game and get that pre-order bonus if of course you want to be able to play the game on its release. Now of course pre-ordering a game can be risky. Let's say that you pre-order it months before the game releases and it's absolutely terrible, then chances are you can't get a refund because obviously you've pre-ordered it so long ago to the point where the refunds allowance of what's usually 2 weeks on most platforms has obviously gone by, and of course you've owned it for more than 2 weeks, it's just not released, so you've had no idea whether it's any good or not. So what I recommend doing is pre-ordering the game basically now. I would say 10 days before the release. In that window is a good time to pre-order Dead Island 2, since that way of course you haven't used up the whole 2 weeks and you still have about 3 or 4 days to play the game and decide whether you like it, or of course if you played it for under a certain amount of time and haven't owned it for a certain amount of time, then of course you can get a refund. But definitely make sure that you do pre-order the game, since then you are getting a pre-order bonus. It is also worth noting of course that you could wait until the reviews release for the game and then pre-order it, since the reviews tend to come out a couple days before it does release. But anyway, let's get into that pre-order bonus. So providing that you pre-order Dead Island 2 on any of the platforms it's releasing on, those being PC, PlayStation 5 and 4, Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S, then you will get this bonus, and it doesn't matter what edition of the game you get either. So this is the Banoi War Club. You also get the Memories of Banoi Baseball Bat, the weapon perk which is balanced, and a personal space skill card. So basically you're getting the Weapons of Banoi pack and also getting a few weapon perks and a personal space skill cards. So in my opinion you may as well pre-order the game to make sure you're getting that, since of course this is a one-time opportunity really. You won't really be able to get this at any other time, so you may as well get that, since of course then you're just getting a few extra things just for pre-ordering the game at basically the same price if you're going to get it on release anyway. So the second thing is to purchase the right edition of the game, and I'll quickly run through the editions of the game and then you can decide for yourself which one you want to get. So first of all, of course, there is the Dead Island 2 standard edition, coming in at around $60 to $70 depending on the retailer of course, and that is for all platforms. Then there is the digital deluxe edition. Now this cannot be purchased physically. The only edition that can be purchased physically is the gold edition through a collector's edition, and also the standard edition just by getting the normal, disc case and everything like that. But the deluxe edition will include the Memories of Banoi pack, the golden weapons pack, and the character pack 1 and 2, and this comes in at $5 more than the standard edition. Then there is the gold edition. Now the gold edition is available physically but only through the Hella edition, which we'll get onto soon. But either way, the gold edition, which is also available on all platforms, comes with the expansion pass, the Memories of Banoi pack, the pulp weapons pack, the gold weapons pack, and the character pack 1 and 2. Then there is the Hella edition, which is the gold edition, but it also includes a few collectibles, those being an exclusive steelbook case. It also comes with a travel map and a tarot card, so some pretty cool things there that you can get if you're interested in getting the collector's edition, but that comes in at $100. So those are the different editions of the game. There's no early access or anything like that, and all those editions are available on every single platform other than the Hella edition, which is only available on the consoles, not for PC. But basically the choice there really is yours. Personally, I'm probably just going to purchase the standard edition, but of course the gold edition is pretty tempting considering that you do get the expansion pass, and then at the same time the deluxe edition is pretty tempting since it's only $5 more than getting the standard edition. But either way, the choice there really is yours. At the end of the day, you all get the base game no matter what edition you purchase. So now we're on to the third thing, and that is to play Dead Island 1 before you play Dead Island 2. The stories actually carry on from where they left off. So Dead Island 2 is following the story of Dead Island 1. Of course they might not completely continue off each other, but basically Dead Island 2 is set after Dead Island 1, so it makes sense to play the first one before you play the second one. And these days you can get Dead Island 1 on PlayStation, Xbox or PC for literally under $5 or £5, so it's definitely worth getting if you haven't played it yet, especially since there is a remastered definitive edition, so definitely something worth playing. And we'll get on to the fourth thing now, which is a summary of the Dead Island 1 story. So if you don't want to play the game of course, so it's probably pretty important to at least know the Dead Island 1 story. Now I'm not going to go into complete details of the story right here because I've already done a video going over the entire Dead Island 1 story, which I'll link in the description and at the end of this video. But to put it simply, you are on the island of Banoi and you are trying to survive and of course get a vaccine for this disease which is spreading and making loads and loads of zombies. That's your job, and there are a couple playable characters within that game, and of course you have to protect yourself at the same time whilst playing through the story, since of course there's loads of zombies trying to attack you. But of course I do recommend watching my video, going over the entire Dead Island 1 story, or of course playing the game for yourself. But now let's move on to the next thing, which is going to be the fifth thing, and that is the PC requirements for the game. So obviously this only applies to you on PC, but if you are on PC, then it's pretty important to take a look at the PC requirements since they recently got released for Dead Island 2. So on screen now you can see these PC requirements, and I'll quickly walk through them. So at minimum, this is 1080p 30fps. You're going to need an AMD FX 9590 or an Intel Core i7 7th gen with 10GB of RAM and an AMD RX 480 or a GTX 1060 or anything equivalent to that, and you need at least 70GB of space available no matter what. So for the recommended settings, this is 1080p at 60 frames per second, and you will need a 5600X Ryzen 5 or a 9th gen i9, and of course you are going to need 16GB of RAM, pretty standard there, and an RX 6600 XT or a 2070 Super in terms of the GPU. So for the high, this is 1440p 60 frames per second. You're going to need a 7th gen Ryzen 7 or an Intel i5 12600KF. Then you're going to need 16GB of RAM again, and then for the GPU you'll need an RX 6750 XT or you'll need an RTX 3070. Then for Ultra, this is 4K 60 frames per second. You'll need a 7th gen Ryzen 9 or a 13th gen i7 with 16GB of RAM or an RX 6950 XT with a 3090. So some pretty insane PC requirements there. For example, in the high settings, you're needing a 7th gen Ryzen 7, a pretty insane CPU you're going to be needing just to be able to hit 1440p at 60 frames per second. Now, I assume that does mean that at high graphics settings as well, but we'll just have to wait and see how all of that works when all the benchmarking videos come out as well. But either way, if you're on PC, those are requirements you're going to need to meet depending on the resolution and frame rate that you want. So now we're on to the sixth thing, which is a quick one, and that is making sure you have enough storage. Now, I would say to have at least 100GB of free space, no matter what you're on PC, I would say actually 150, since you always want some free space on your drive, but on consoles, I would say you want at least 100GB of available space. And then, yeah, on PC, I would say 150GB, so nothing too major, but obviously that is pretty standard these days, to be honest, as well. So now we're on to the seventh, which is the Dead Island 2 characters, and making sure you know what the 6 playable protagonists are within Dead Island 2, and I'll quickly walk through those now, but it is worth noting I've already done a video going over this, and a link to that video is in the description below. So the 6 playable characters within Dead Island 2 are Amy, Bruno, Carla, Danny, Jacob, and Ryan. That's all I'm really going to go through, since they all have different abilities and loads of different backstories, but I won't go into detail since I've already done a video going over that. But either way, those are the 6 playable characters for Dead Island 2, something definitely worth knowing before you play it. So now we're on to the 8th thing, and that is to watch Dead Island 2 gameplay. IGN have already released the first 11 minutes of the game, so I'd recommend watching that. I'll link it in the description below. It's definitely worth knowing the Dead Island 2 gameplay, I would say, a bit before you go into the game, unless of course you want zero spoilers at all. So the 9th thing is to learn the Dead Island 2 weapons slightly. Of course, there's a massive variety of Dead Island 2 weapons, and I've already done a video doing a complete Dead Island 2 weapons analysis, but it is worth noting that there are going to be loads and loads of different weapons. So just something worth noting there, there's going to be things from shotguns to assault rifles to golf clubs to, you know, a claw hammer and pickaxes and everything like that. Loads of different melee weapons and loads of different firearms. Just something worth noting there. And of course you'll get access to, you know, stuff like grenades and molotovs and everything like that as well, just to help you kill that big variety of zombies, which moves us on to the next thing, which is the different Dead Island 2 zombies. Now, I've already done a video going over this as well, but there's loads of different Dead Island 2 zombies, and it's worth noting that obviously different Dead Island 2 zombies will need different weapons to be able to kill them, and they'll need different strategies in order to be able to face them as well. So yeah, it's really just worth noting that there are loads of different zombies, from crawlers to walkers to loads of massive zombies as well. There's just a massive variation in the zombies that you will be facing. Examples of these are butchers, screamers, suiciders, walkers, runners, slobbers, and crushers. So just worth noting that there's loads of different zombies. So now we're on to the next thing, which is the 11th thing, and that is just to learn the Dead Island 2 combat. Of course, pretty similar to what we talked about with the weapons, but just making sure that you understand the combat and how this sort of mixes in with killing certain zombies and everything like that. Just understanding the overall combat mechanics of the game. And the 12th thing is that I'll quickly walk through the Dead Island 2 story and setting. So the Dead Island 2 setting is one very blood-soaked Los Angeles. Dan Buster will let us explore some of the most iconic locations of the city, from the suburbia of Beverly Hills to the sun-drenched promenade of Venice Beach and beyond. Naturally, all of LA is positively teeming with zombies and weapons, so the city is proving itself to be a natural battleground for this game. So in terms of the story, Dead Island 2 starts on an evacuation plane, which is rescuing you from a band of fellow survivors from the otherwise condemned, overridden streets of LA. However, when your plane crashes, you're forced to fend for yourself, and pick your way through the wreckage. Your character then gets bitten during an altercation with a zombie, but when you find that you don't change into one yourself, you realise that you must be immune to the virus that turns other people into monsters. Now, you need to find a way to gather fellow survivors and carve a path through the abandoned city in order to contact the government and get your whole crew rescued. And there you go, that was the setting and storyline for Dead Island 2. Just a good idea to, know what you're getting into before you play it. And there we go, those are 12 things to do before the release of Dead Island 2. So providing you've done all that and, well, hopefully listened to all of that, then you are now set for the release on the 21st of April and will be able to get stuck straight into the game. So that does just about wrap up things here. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I have done a video going over the entire Dead Island 1 story. A link to that video is on the screen now, and if you're interested in watching that, then just click the link and go ahead and join me over there.